So today we're going to talk about the Chapter 1 test. We're going to do a review together as a class. And just so you know, oftentimes my reviews look a lot like the tests. So they're set up similar, the numbers and stuff are changed, but the ideas and everything remain the same. So if you're able to do well on this review, then you should be fine for the test. Okay, so the first set of directions here, all of them say write your final answers in the space provided. So there's going to be lines off to the right where you're going to fill your answer in. And then for number 1, it gives us a set A, and it has a bunch of numbers there. And we need to simplify those numbers and plot them on the number line in order from smallest to biggest. And then when we do plot these points, we're going to label them as well. So the way that I would do this is work left to right so that you know you don't forget any numbers. So the first number is negative square root of 7. So in your calculator, you can do the square root of 7, and that should come out to be 2.6 something. And then you know that that number needs to be negative because there's a negative sign out front. So I'm going to plot a point in between negative 2 and negative 3, and I'm going to label that negative square root of 7. All right, and then my next number is negative 1. I'm going to plot that point, and that number is already labeled because there's a negative 1 underneath of it, so you don't need to label that one. I'm going to cross off as I go. My next number is 0.5. That's a half, so that's going to go in between 0 and 1, and I need to label that. My next number is 3. Plot that point. That one's already labeled. Next point is 0, so I'm going to plot that. It's already labeled. Square root of 16. So if you don't know that off the top of your head, you need to put that in your calculator. You should get 4, but you need to label it square root of 16. So I know that you know what number you're talking about. And then the last one is 4 over 2. 4 over 2 is the same as 2. So I'm going to label that as well. So you should count and make sure that you have all the points labeled there. All right, and then part B, we're using those same numbers, and we need to list the elements that belong to each set. So my whole numbers, I need to pick which of those that I just plotted are whole numbers. So whole numbers, again, are the numbers starting at 0, all the counting numbers, all the positive counting numbers. So negative square root of 7, not a whole number. Negative 1, not a whole number. But 0 is a whole number. Okay, 0.5 is not. 4 over 2 is a whole number when it's simplified. 3 is a whole number. And the square root of 16 is a whole number when it's simplified. So those are the numbers that should be listed there. Rational numbers. Rational numbers are fractions and any numbers that decimals terminate or repeat. So negative square root of 7, that is not a rational number because the decimal goes on and on forever. Negative 1 is a rational number. It can be written as a fraction. 0 can be written as a fraction. 0.5 is a decimal right now, but can be written as a fraction. 4 over 2 is a rational number. 3 is a rational number, and so is the square root of 16. So all those numbers up there are rational except for the negative square root of 7. Real numbers. Real numbers are any number in the entire universe, so every single one of those numbers should be written here. Okay, integers. Integers are positive and negative counting numbers, including 0. So negative square root of 7 is not an integer, but negative 1 is. So is 0. 0.5 is not. 4 over 2 is an integer. 3 is an integer, and so is the square root of 16. Okay, and then natural numbers. Natural numbers are positive counting numbers starting at 1. So my 2 negative numbers are definitely out. 0 is out. 0.5 is not a natural number. 4 over 2 is. 3 is, and so is the square root of 16. Okay, there's definitely going to be a section like this on your test. So if you are confused, you need to make sure that you email me or stop in. Okay, part 2, it says evaluate each expression, show all of your work for full credit. So just like any other math teacher, whenever you're solving these problems, you need to show your work, or else I could assume that you just plugged it into a calculator and didn't try. Okay, letter A, it says 8 minus 3 squared plus 2 times 6 plus negative 5 squared. So following PEMDAS, I need to look for parentheses. There's some parentheses here, but it represents multiplication, so that's out. Next we need to do is exponents. So I'm going to bring down the 8 and the minus sign. 3 squared is 9. Rewrite plus 2 times 6, and negative 5 squared is positive 25. Okay, the next thing I need to do is multiplication here. 2 times 6. 2 times 6 is 12. And then I've got subtraction and addition left here. I need to work left to right. 8 minus 9 is negative 1. And negative 1 plus 12 is 11. Bring down the plus 25, and 11 plus 25 is 36. And then since we got 36 for that answer, well, we would write that over off to the right. Okay, part B, this is again evaluating an expression. So we are going to, again, start with order of operations. So there's no parentheses here other than multiplication. So we've got some exponents though, so I need to rewrite the stuff that I'm not dealing with. Bring down the minus sign. 3 squared is 9. And then rewriting the denominator, 2 cubed, remember, is 2 times 2 times 2, so that would be 8. And then plus 1. Okay, now we've got a lot of multiplication here, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it all in the same step. So 8 times 4 is 32. Minus 9 times 5 is 45. And negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. And then on the denominator, negative 3 times 8 is negative 24. And then plus 1. Okay, now I've got a bunch of subtraction and addition to do, so I'm going to simplify those. 32 minus 45 is negative 13. And then simplifying the numerator and the denominator, negative 13 plus 2 is negative 11. And on the bottom, negative 24 plus 1 is negative 23. And then, of course, we don't want this double negative here, so my answer is positive 11 over 23. And I would write that on that blank. Okay, shifting gears a little bit, we're going to go back to our absolute value things here. So absolute value bars are kind of like parentheses. You need to work from the inside out. So negative 1 times negative 5 is positive 5. And then I've got the absolute value bars there. And the absolute value of 5 would be 5. So that answer would go on this line. Okay, part D, I've got absolute value of negative 2 plus absolute value of negative 6 minus absolute value of 3. So I'm going to simplify each of those individually and then put them together. So absolute value of negative 2 is positive 2. Absolute value of negative 6 is 6. And the absolute value of 3 is 3. The signs in the middle just carried over. And now I just need to work from left to right. So 2 plus 6 is 8. 8 minus 3 is 5. So 5 is my answer to part D as well. Okay, and then part E, I have the absolute value of 5 minus 7, so that would be negative 2. And then in the next one, negative 3 minus 5 is negative 8. Negative 8 plus 6 is negative 2. And then I have the absolute value of 9, and then this negative sign out front, so that would be negative 9. Okay, the absolute value of negative 2 is 2. Absolute value of negative 2 is 2. Bring down the minus 9. So 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 minus 9 is negative 5. All right, part 3, some true or false. This is similar to your homework problems that you had to do with classifying numbers. So the square root of negative 9 is a rational number. Okay, the square root of negative 9, if you plug that into your calculator, it's going to say syntax error or something like that. That's because it's an imaginary number. Imaginary numbers are not rational, so this would be false. Okay, part B, some rational numbers are natural numbers. So remember, natural numbers are numbers starting at 1 and going in the positive direction. They're all the counting numbers. So since it says the word some here, that means it's true, because some rational numbers are natural numbers, but not all of them. And part C, every whole number is a natural number. Every whole number is a natural number. Whole numbers start at 0 and go in the positive direction. Natural numbers start at 1 and go in the positive direction. So because it says the word every here, it's false, because 0 is not a natural number. All right, next part, part 4, it says write each set by listing the elements. So this says the set of all m such that m is a whole number less than 6. So this is where we draw our squiggly bracket, and we need to list all the whole numbers that are less than 6. So that would start at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It does not say that it's equal to 6, so I do not include 6. So I will close my bracket there. Okay, part B, it says the set of all w such that w is a natural number whose absolute value is 9. So because it says natural number here, that means it's only going to include positive numbers. So my answer is only 9. On your homework, it said a real number or an integer or something, so that's why we included the negative number as well. But since it's only a natural number, it's only going to be positive. All right, part 5, we are going in the other direction, so this time we have to come up with the words, so we need to write these in set builder notation. So I'm going to start with my variable. I'm going to use x. So the set of all x such that x, well, what kind of number is it? Let's see, it's a whole number, it's a positive integer, it is a natural number, so you could use any of those. I'm going to say it's a natural number. What else do we have to say? Well, we have to say it's a multiple of 3. And we have to say that it's less than or equal to 12. Just like I mentioned when you were doing this a couple weeks ago, everybody's answer isn't going to be the same. It's going to depend on what type of number you pick and all that. So there's going to be a lot of different answers for these, and I'm going to check them carefully. Okay, part B, it says it goes on forever in the negative infinity direction, -2, 0, 2, and 4. So because it includes negative numbers, we know that it's an integer. So I'm going to write that off first. Okay, the set of all x such that x is an integer. What else can we say about it? Well, it's a multiple of 2. And it only goes on forever in the negative direction, so that means we've got to make a stopping point. So we need to say less than or equal to 4. Okay, so those are done. Now we're going to go over what we just went over recently and with interval notation. So this says the set of all x such that x is greater than -5. So we've got our number line here. I'm going to plot my point at -5. And remember, we look at the inequality sign here. It's not equal to, so that means we're going to do a parenthesis. And we're talking about all numbers that are bigger than -5. So it's going to face this direction. And then I'm going to shade. Okay, and then we're going to copy that up on this line. So it's going to be parenthesis -5, comma, and then it goes on forever in the positive infinity direction, and there's always a parenthesis around infinity. We never use brackets around infinity. Okay, part B, it says the set of all x such that x is less than or equal to 5. So I'm going to plot my point at 5, because I know that's the number that we're talking about here. The inequality sign says equal to, so that means I'm going to draw a bracket. I know I'm talking about numbers less than, so I'm going to shade to the left. And then I need to copy that on the line above. So my stopping point is 5 with a bracket around it. and it goes on forever in the negative infinity direction, so that needs to be a parenthesis. Okay, last one, the set of all x such that x is greater than -3 and less than or equal to 4. So I plot my points at -3 and 4. The inequality sign on -3 should be an open parenthesis because it's not equal to. And my inequality sign on 4 should be a bracket, and they should be facing each other. And then we're going to shade in between. And then I'm going to copy that up on the line. So it's going to be -3 to 4, and parenthesis on -3, bracket on 4. Okay, so again, this review is going to look a lot like your test. You're going to have an opportunity for more practice on Math Excel as well. And if you're really struggling, then you need to ask for help.